A while back, I went into my theory of Christopher Lightwood, but I didn't mention any of my other theories pertaining to the other boys. I'm only going into James, Matthew, and Thomas since I've already gone into Christopher's character, and you can find the link to my theories for Christopher in the description. James Herondale is one of the most anticipated characters for the last hour since his debut in the Midnight Air. Since this Bane Chronicles story is the closest to the events in the last hours, it's this characterization of James that is most important to my theory. Yes, he was absolutely adorable and nothing but shadows in the Whitechapel Fiend, but those don't actually matter. James is in love with Grace Cartwright, but according to the family tree, he is married to Cordelia Carstairs. I've already gone over why I believe Grace and Christopher marry, but why do Cordelia and James marry? In the snippets Ms. Clare has released, Cordelia mentions her affections towards James. It seems probable that James realizes that Cordelia actually loves him and realizes that his love for Grace is destructive. But Ms. Clare has stated that there is a weird yet reasonable reason why James and Cordelia will marry. What reason could this be? Not to get into my theories for Lucy, but we know that Will wants to marry her to Alistair Carstairs, probably because a Herondale and a Carstairs marriage sounds great to him. We also know that Lucy has an obsession with Jessie Blackthorn, whom she eventually marries. If Lucy starts to go after Jessie, there is no doubt in my mind that Will give his blessing to the two of them. Then he turns to his son. James is still single. Cordelia is still single. So Will and Alistair, who would probably be in charge of Cordelia's affairs since their father is dead, make an arranged engagement between the two of them, and so the relationship between James and Cordelia is sealed. So what about Matthew Fairchild? We have absolutely no information as to when he dies or how old he is when he dies. We have a brilliant description of him in Academy, but it's the flower card that tells all. As we've seen in Christopher's flower card, the flower representing Matthew means a lot more than what the description states. The obvious meaning to the green carnation is that it's a symbol of Oscar Wilde. Wilde and his followers often wore these flowers in public, and since Wilde is Matthew's favorite author, it makes sense that Matthew would be wearing his flower. They have two other interesting meanings as well. One is the fact that green is a very unnatural color for any flower, therefore the green carnation is known to represent the decadent and the unnatural. The other meaning that has developed over time is that the green carnation represents homosexuality. This, of course, is big news for any Shadowhunter fan, especially one trying to figure out if Clary and Jocelyn are descendants of Charles or Matthew. Especially after seeing his flamboyant characterization in Academy, we can assume that Matthew Fairchild is gay, and that we can expect some sort of same-sex relationship in the upcoming series. I originally theorized that Malcolm Fade and Matthew Fairchild were together, as Malcolm went insane around the early 1900s, possibly due to Matthew's death. But Malcolm has already stated that he has no interest in the same sex, so that theory is out. Remember in the Infernal Devices when Wolsey Scott mentioned that the only love he was interested in was physical love? Ms. Clare has a tendency to make people who scoff at love eat their words, so I believe that there will be some sort of affair between Matthew and Wolsey. There's one last theory I have for Matthew, but it is a sad one. Like the Mortal Instruments and the Infernal Devices, the Last Hours and the Dark Artifices are partnered. From Lady Midnight, we already know that the theme for these books is on Paradabai. We've seen quite a bit about Paradabai from the other books, but what haven't we learned about Paradabai so far? We learned a little bit about Paradabai death from Will and Jem, but Jem didn't really die, which means that we need to have a true Paradabai death at some point, and since we don't have a death date for Matthew yet... Finally, there is Thomas. I don't have much for him because we know less about him than the other two. Based on the family tree, he will marry and have some sort of contribution to the Lightwood family name, but he will quickly leave his wife a widow. He dies 12 years after the start of Chain of Gold, probably in a demon attack. What I find interesting is that his father, Gideon, dies 4 years later. I'm thinking that Thomas dies in a demon attack, and Gideon spends the rest of his life looking for the demon that killed his son. Gideon is in his late 50s, early 60s during this time, so he's not strong enough to battle a demon, and he dies. Those are my theories, and I'm interested in hearing yours. Let me know. Until next time, happy reading. We also know that Lucy has an obsession with James. Oh, that's the wrong series. This is not the Mortal Instruments.